God, how does anyone ever choose where to go? What if I'm missing out on the good spots and I don't know it? Is this what FOMO feels like? Gosh, maybe I'm overthinking this. I really don't know where to start. Hi, my name is Loui. Ever since I can remember, I have loved a good old-fashioned adventure. As a kid, I remember taking short road trips with my mom and my brother to different cities in California. Those times were always the best. Hopping in a car together to experience something new was always something so exciting for us as a family. In my adulthood, that has morphed into a more extreme version of those childhood memories. In 2020 and 2021, I traveled the southern USA via a self-converted Aerostar van and eventually graduated to a fully kitted out 4x4 overlanding rig called Black Panther, which I have explored many a desert and unpaid road with so far. Now I'm dipping my toes back into international travel. I'm still a bit nervous about it since the panini and all, so I'm gonna go easy on myself for this first trip outside of the US again and take the Trans-Canadian Highway and Alaskan Highway all the way back with my Jeep to my home base in Southeast Alaska. In this video, I will be outlining how I plan an old-fashioned road trip and some things that you will need specifically to travel the beautiful country of Canada. I'm giving myself approximately 6 weeks to enjoy this journey and documenting it all and posting it here on this channel. So don't forget to subscribe, as well as don't forget to follow me over on Instagram for more live updates, as well as some pretty unhinged Insta stories. It's a fun time. Hi everyone, Loui here from the past at my adventure home base here in Alaska. Before I hopped on a plane to go on my epic Canadian road trip, I did a bunch of planning. Go back and watch those videos if you haven't already to catch up with your girl. The first step I usually take when planning a massive road trip like this is the budgeting part of the planning. I like to get a general idea of what I'm going to be spending on a trip so I can know what to prepare for. The number one thing, as we all know, is figuring out how much gas is going to cost because, as we all know, gas is astronomical right now. Is this the best time and the wisest time to be taking a road trip? Probably not. Is your girl going to do it anyways? Yes. Not really trying to flex on people. I kind of have to do this in order to have a vehicle up here in Alaska in the first place. I guess the best way to take a road trip in this day and age is to kill two birds with one stone, so that is exactly what I'm doing. And I wouldn't say I have been the best at budgeting or with money in the past. I think this is a side effect of being a tourist who really likes luxury things and to be comfortable and have material items. I can't blame myself. What can I do? But more recently, as a 25-year-old, I've come into my own as an adult and I've become a bit more planful with my money, and making a budget for each of my road trips is really important to me. But let me just tell you, this is a pretty loose budget. It's not like I'm budgeting every single item that I'm buying or figuring out every gas station along the way and how much that gas station is charging and how many gallons. I don't do that. I do a loose budget, which I think suffices for most people. Basically, I start off by figuring out where I'm going from point A to point B, just a general sense of the mileage. So for this trip, I figured out the approximate amount of miles I will be taking for this whole trip, all the way from Michigan to Vancouver Island, down to Portland to take care of some business, and then back up to Skagway in Alaska. So that's a lot of miles. So I figure out that general amount approximately. Of course, it's not going to be perfect. Then I added on another 500 miles because I like to do some pretty intense exploring down back roads and checking new stuff out. So I just wanted to pad it a little bit. Then I put it into my little calculation that I will put up here on the screen. I include the average miles per gallon that I get from my gas guzzling Jeep. Not gonna lie, that Jeep takes a lot of gas. It's no hybrid. It's no electric car, that's for sure. I also take the average price for gas in Canada at the moment, and from what my research I can tell, it's around $6 a gallon. If you're from Canada, tell me if that's true or not. I took that average and I put the amount of miles, which is around 5,000 miles that I will be driving. I need to be prepared to spend around $2,000 to drive this whole trip. Yes, I know that is a lot of money for gas, and I know I'm very privileged to be able to spend that amount of money. So that's just reality. I want to be transparent about how much I spend on road trips like this, so you guys can get an idea of realistically, like a trip like this, what it would cost. It's not cheap, let's put it that way. So don't come at me, or I'll come at you. Just kidding, I'm too nice. I wouldn't do that. I just ignore it. Then after that, I like to factor in my food expense, my potential lodging, which I don't do a lot of, but I do like to have some extra money there to pad it just in case I need to get a hotel room or something. I also add in a miscellaneous budget just in case I want to go do something like go to a hot spring that's paid in Banff or something. I definitely don't spend all the money that I budget out for these categories. However, it's nice to just know that you have a little extra money prepared for really any instance and for emergency situations as well. So already y'all are probably like, wow, this is a very expensive trip for most people. I'm not tone deaf to that. I know that most people can't afford that. There are some things that you guys can easily implement into your road trip itineraries and budgets. So the first thing that I do, which is pretty obvious, is that I don't tend to pay for campsites. I like to utilize public lands. That's what they are here for. That is the reason why I have a SUV that I can camp in. I think even if you don't have an expedition ready rig, you can do it in your sedan. Just bring a tent along. If you have seats that can fold down in a hatchback, it's a great way to go camping in your car if you don't feel safe camping outdoors. But you can also bring a tent. If you're with other people, usually it's pretty easy to just camp along the way. I highly recommend it. I think it's really fun to try to go down some back roads and do some exploring to find campgrounds that you feel like you have found on your own, which I will explain how I do that later on in the video. But the next thing I do is I pretty much cook all of my food on the road as well as all of my coffee. I think that's easily the best way to save money on the road. The food expenses will really add up if you're stopping at every gas station and getting a new cup of coffee every time or buying a couple snacks. I've done that. We've all been there, and those expenses add up. So the nice thing about carrying some camping gear with you, some cooking gear with you, is that you can stop along the way. Beautiful parks, rest stops most of the time, but sometimes you can find a really good park and do some cooking. And at your campsites, you can cook as well. You'd be paying for your food in your regular day-to-day anyways. So all you have to do is just transfer those habits to your road trip as best as you can. And I guarantee you, you will save money. Don't buy Red Bulls like I did when I was driving to Michigan a couple months ago. That also added up for me too. And it's not healthy. So definitely tea, coffee, prepare those on your own. That's my wise old woman advice. And of course, the reason why you're road tripping is to see and do cool things. And a couple of things I have learned along the way, which might be obvious to some of y'all already, but maybe not for some of you, is to find free things to do. A good way to find really cool things to do that are free in cities is to go onto Facebook, join Facebook groups, and see what they're doing. There's also a website that I used to use. It was like 365 events or something. I'll link it, that I used to use when I lived in Oakland. I used to find tons of free events to go to and do when I was living there, and they were generally all free. As well as if you go into any like grocery store or like co-op store or the visitor center, usually there are publications that have free events in them that you can also go to. And then if you're out in the countryside, there are always free hikes and historical places a Google away. Just got to get good with your researching skills and you will have a good time, I promise. One of the most important things about going on an epic road trip is obviously figuring out where you're going to go and the routes you're going to take. Yes, it can be fun to kind of just go with the flow and seeing where you end up. And if that's your road trip style, more power to you. For me, what I recommend at the very least is to do a little bit of research about the areas that you are going to be going to. For example, doing a little bit of research about some small towns that you might be passing through on your route. And of course, about the native peoples of the land you will be passing through, I think can just give you a richer experience and kind of give you some context that helps deepen your experience. It's so hard for me to record in the library. Welcome to the chaos that is my studio before leaving for 6 weeks. I wanted to talk about the resource that I love the most, which is very, very dorky, but I don't think it receives enough promotion on the internet, and that is the public library. I use a library to research pretty much everything and anything, and so for this trip I decided to check some books out from the library. I wanted to remind you that the public library is a great resource for researching road trips that is free. The one thing that I do have to say though is a book like this one looks a little outdated compared to this book. So check the dates of publications on the books and only take the lodging and the food kind of stuff that can change over time with a grain of salt, because they probably have changed. I've had that happen to me before. Other than that, I think it's a great way to find a guide that you really like before you spend the $30-40 on purchasing it. And I'll probably end up buying this guide at some point since I live so close to Canada. Anyways, that is just my hot take. Back to the video. If y'all have the patience to do a little bit more research, this is how I like to plan my road trips. First, I like to start out by writing a route list with the dates and the places that I will be going. Usually those stops are places that I've already researched for my route. And for this specific section of the 6-week trip, I will be establishing a pretty quick pace. I don't normally do that, but I need to get to Vancouver Island by a specific date to meet my mom, of course, to get my dog and to spend some time with her. So normally I don't do that. Normally I like to plan a little extra time. I move pretty slowly when I travel. I think that's the best way to immerse yourself in the culture of the place and really learn a lot about a spot. So that's what I recommend for everybody else. If you can lengthen your travel period a little bit longer, that's great. I am limiting myself to driving less than 8 hours in a day. I've done 14, 15-hour days driving, and that's horrible. So on my longest days, I will be driving 8 hours. On my shortest days, it'll be around 4 to 5 hours in this period of time. And then those shorter days are the days that I'm going to be visiting a specific place that I have planned. Another thing I want to say though is don't take your itinerary too seriously. I think it's definitely okay to skip or add things to your itinerary. It's good to be spontaneous. I mean, that's the point of traveling. So never feel bad if you have to delete some things from your list. And also never feel bad if you need to pull over because you're really tired from driving and you just need to take a break. Listen to yourself. I think some of the coolest things that I have discovered traveling are because I pulled over in a place that I did not expect, and I ended up finding like a cool vista viewpoint or a cool park or a cool historical placard that taught me something cool. I think that there is definitely room for the unexpected. Don't overplan, but also don't underplan, if that makes sense. Okay, so here is the juice, the meat of the equation that I think a lot of people want to know is, how do I find places to stay at night? Where do I stay? Why do I stay there? Who, what, when, where, why do I stay in those places? So I'm just going to give you all a little outline of how I do it, and I know it's different for everyone. These are the tools and the ways that I find free camping spots throughout my road trips all over the world. Well, so far all over North America. First of all, I start with the spicy Overlander. Everybody uses Overlander now. I think it's a really great place to start to get a general idea of what an area is like. You could see if an area is open to having people, transient people like me, coming through and utilizing their resources and sleeping in their parking lots and driving down their dirt roads. So it's good to get on there to kind of get a general sense of what the neighborhoods are like and what the forest lands are kind of like. You'll be able to tell by clicking on a couple of those little spots in each of the areas. Once I find a spot that looks pretty friendly to travelers and free campers, I go a little bit deeper. I like to hop on the app Gaia GPS. It is a paid service. It's $40 a year, but if you think about it, a friend of mine was telling me $40 for a paid campsite could go to $40 for the Gaia GPS that you have all year, and that can help you find free campsites for multiple nights. So I use Gaia GPS, make sure that's all loaded, and there's a layer that has public land on it. And in Canada, the public land is called Crown Land. And so what I do is I go in there, see the layers, see where I can camp for free and legally, and I like to go a little bit further. I will start at a spot on iOverlander, see that that's a general like forest area, someone's camped in that area, and then I like to push a little bit further. I've been really enjoying doing exploring on my own. It's really one-upped the experience for me after doing this for 3+ years now. You need a little bit more spice in your life. I kind of use those two apps in conjunction to find spots that I feel like I have found on my own. Usually there's spots that other people have found, but it makes it exciting. It's like a treasure hunt for a camp spot. By the way, I post all of those spots over on my Patreon for each of the videos that I make for y'all, and sometimes I give y'all bonus spots that I've been to that I haven't made videos about, but I've camped there, and I usually give a little information about each of those spots as well. So y'all know what to do. This is everything I basically do to create a loose itinerary. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, leave them below. Yeah, any tips and tricks that you have as well. I think everybody has a different traveling style, and that's really interesting to see how people travel. Hello everybody, we are on my kitchen floor. I'm going to end this video with a little bit of hopefully some inspiration for y'all to get out on the road. I get comments all the time from people saying that you've never done a road trip before or traveled solo, and that scares you. So I asked some questions on Instagram to get some outside, perspectives are about road trips. So the first question I asked is, what scares you the most about solo travel? I think this is the number one thing stopping people from getting out there, is just fear. I think one of my fears, I have many fears obviously for solo travel, but one that comes up a lot for me is feeling afraid when I'm on back roads that I'll break down and have no way to contact anyone. I do have a satellite Garmin inReach thingy, but even then it's just a fear of mine to not have any contact if something happens and I can't fix it. But what about you guys? Let's see what y'all said. Auntie Ayana says car breaking down, being pulled over, and having to deal with creepy men. Yes, being pulled over is definitely another one of my main fears. Yeah, it's just not a fun experience. I completely agree. Dan says engine AC breaking down, service wait is a week. That's terrifying, definitely, in these times with the heat that is happening down south. Empty Nest Project says 100% it's creepy dudes. Yeah, Explorer with Geo says UFOs. I agree. DD Davis says stress of navigating and finding parking. 100. The anxiety of knowing that it's not easy and it's difficult sometimes to find spots can definitely stop me from wanting to solo travel and finding spots that are safe as a solo traveler. Rishi 1112 says probably somebody trying to break into my car or something. I have no idea what I'd do in that situation. Yeah, I've had someone try to break into one of the vans that I had built out. I was in the city, I was in my hometown, and that was terrifying. But let's not dwell on our fears too much. The next question I asked is, what excites you the most about road trips? Is it the wind blowing in your hair? Is it the gas station snacks? Is it the complete feeling of freedom on the road? I feel the freest when I am driving on an open road. So I'm just going to read a couple because I got a lot of responses. Thank you to everyone who responded to the question, but we're just going to read a couple in interest of time. Mishki says new adventures and new discoveries. Flora with Geo says exploring the unknown. Kelsey says going where I want when I want. Spazoid says the views and food. Ray says the literal freedom of the open road and watching the views. Lon Ferocia says finding those unplanned historical locations. You get me. I think we're here. I'm with you on that one. Lastly, my favorite response, Bianca Graham says snacks. LOL. Agreed. I love a good snack. Food just tastes better on the road. And the last question I asked, in order to get y'all's gears turning about where you could potentially take a road trip, I asked, what is your dream road trip destination? Ray says, Africa. I have looked into shipping my Jeep over to Europe and doing the whole Africa thing, and I think that's awesome. It does scare my mother though. Every time I mention it, she's like, I don't know about that, but people do that. That's very cool. Persephone NYX says, once around the Mediterranean Sea, explore every border of the ancient Roman Empire. That's pretty cool. I haven't even thought of that. That would be awesome. I'm sorry, pronouncing your handle wrong. Goat 253 says, tip of Florida to the tip of Canada on the east coast side through New York. I feel like everybody in the US, if you have access to it, should do a great USA road trip. It will show you that this country is very diverse in terms of people and ecology and biodiversity, and it's an amazing place. Though I have my beef with the US, I do think it's a great place to road trip. It is the place to road trip. I got a couple answers for Australia and New Zealand. That is my main goal in life, is to be able to ship my Jeep to Australia and New Zealand eventually. Anyways, I hope that hearing from some other people can help inspire you to take a road trip, even if it's a small road trip. When I was a kid, we started doing road trips just 2 or 3 hours out for day trips, and it was the least commitment for like the best payoff. So if you're out there thinking about going on a road trip but don't know where to start, definitely take some of the tips that I have given you, but take my tips with a grain of salt always, and create your own adventures and your own ways of road tripping. All right, everybody, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Traveling. I believe in the next video we will be in Canada. Yay. Love you guys.